Starting to get some attendance rolling in. Okay, we're just waiting for a few more people to join us before we get started. Okay, I think we're looking pretty good. A few people still rolling in, but Kiki, if you want to get us started, I think we can go ahead and begin.
Okay, well, welcome everybody to the August 23rd Regional Housing and Growth Issues Partnership. Appreciate you all being here. I want to remind everybody, we don't take time to do introductions, but we do update the kmpo.net website with the rosters there that show who the working group partners are, and a roster that has who all of the advisory group members are. So if there are new people added, you can see who's there at that point. If anyone has issues hearing me or not understanding, or if I have connections, please put something in the chat box. We'll reply to you and get things corrected. So I wanted to mention that if you hadn't seen it yet, the Spokesman Review this last Sunday did a very in-depth article about the work that the Housing and Growth Issues Partnership and have been putting together on that collaborative effort to preserve open space on the prairie item. I worked with Ted McDermott, who was the author of that article, and shared a number of contacts and information with him. So I would encourage you to see Sunday's Spokesman Review. Online, you can find its title starting under the News Idaho section, As Rafter and Prairie Disappears with No Plan to Save It. Some farmers are holding out for now is the whole long version of the title. I am asking the spokesman if we can have the permission to put that on the KMPO website along with that conclusion paper document that we did on all of the work on that open space priority item. So I will possibly have an email sent out to the advisory group to let you know if that does get posted there. On that note, just wanting to let the advisory group members know that this group is designed to be a resource for the items that this community wants to see pushed forward. So on that priority item that we had talked about, there is a wealth of information, connections, people, a bunch of different ways to address preserving open space on the prairie, so that if any entity, organization, or group wanting to put new policy together needs help, we're here to help you coordinate and connect you with the folks and the avenues you need to make some of that happen. All of that should be posted, I would say, within the week on the KMPO website, so you can go there. I'll wait to make sure I can put that article with it if possible, and that'll conclude our work on that priority one item. Later in this presentation, we'll have an update on the University of Idaho's housing assessment. I know that one segment of that survey may not have been sent out to our real estate professionals yet, but it's on the way, and heads up to you if your group is in that arena or you have realtors in your membership. That will be coming out this coming week, and it will be coming out from the Association of Realtors. So that's a very, very important survey element. We hope you take advantage of that. Coming into the second item on our agenda, just this last week, we, as promised, convened the subcommittees, which was intended to deal with the second priority item issue that the community wanted us to talk about under housing and growth issues. And that was funding and taking care of the growth impact on our schools. So I am going to double check to see if Jeff Voller is with us in the group. Hillary, if you can let me know. Jeff is with Coeur d'Alene School District, and he has, I don't know if he volunteered or got volunteered, but he is leading the subcommittee, which is a member of now about 9 people who are addressing impacts on schools. So Jeff, if you're here and you'd like to give the advisory group an update, now would be a great time.
Jeff is here as a panelist.
Yep, I am here. So good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. And so my name is Jeff Voller, and I'm the Director of Operations for the Coeur d'Alene School District. And I think maybe I was voluntold to chair the subcommittee, but I'm happy to do it. I've been working a little bit on the back end of this, and actually I'm really passionate about it because I think there is support for the school districts that we all need as we are facing growth that we haven't seen in a long time in this area. So I think my update will actually be fairly brief right now because, like Kiki mentioned, this was really our first meeting that we had. It was an introductory meeting, and we do have people participating from the Post Falls School District, the Lakeland School District, NIC, in the community. So I think we have a nice representation of people to start to discuss some of the challenges facing the schools as it relates to the impacts of growth. I think one of the things we started to see emerge were 2 main topics that I think we're going to spend some time digging into and really focus on. And one of those being affordable housing and availability of housing for our workers. You know, teacher salaries average around $40,000 to $45,000 a year, and we know that's a hard income to be able to afford a house on. And then some of our support staff make even less than that. And so the idea of how do we find housing that our staff can live and function in, I think is going to be a critical issue facing us. And so we'll spend some time digging into that, and maybe it's going to be looking at some local worker housing projects and things that we can work with other partners on and tie into and continue to pursue. I think the second thing that we're seeing is just the idea of funding for land and schools development for future schools. And, you know, right now, really our only means of going after the support that we need is through running bonds, going after the local community for that and making that ask. And we know there's some communities out there that have done some different things through impact fees or excise taxes. And we'll spend some time brainstorming some options and looking both on a local level and a state level on some different things that we can do. And so we're still at a very high level of that, of identifying really what our needs and the impacts are on the schools. And then we'll start to dig down a little bit deeper into some of those avenues and what some of those options are and what we might recommend as some fits for our community and how we can participate in that both locally and on the state level. And so we're going to start meeting every 2 weeks. And I sent the first meeting invite out today. And so I think there'll be a lot more detail to come as we continue to dig into this in the future. But that's kind of where we stand today.
Great. Jeff, did your committee determine the process by where we would be able to share information with this group? Is this going to be at our monthly advisory group meetings? You'll be able to give us an update if we leave you on the agenda. Is that the plan?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best scenario. And so either Scott Maven or I'll be able to do that, but likely I'll take point on that. Great.
Okay. Thank you for that. Then we'll look forward to the next month's report. In the meantime, I will share with you that I have more connections, a couple connections statewide of other cities or entities that are working on similar projects that we're going to connect with this subcommittee. So hopefully we won't have to reinvent the wheel on some items and can help you move your agenda forward more quickly. So anything else we can do on that, Jeff, please reach out to me and I'll make sure we all get connected.
Thank you.
Hillary, do we have anybody who volunteered to read the chat box? Because I just see the red button and I'm not opening it if Sean's not here. Just one.
Sean is not. Bob and Melissa are going to help with the polling thing. I don't see anything yet. Does anybody else see anything in the chat or Q&A boxes?
Yeah, it says I would like Jeff Fuller's contact information to have a workforce housing conversation. That's from Nancy Mabel with PAC. And there's Jeff's email.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, so we'll move on then to Jeff. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you volunteering to head that one up. The next one up would be Maggie. If you are If you are here, Maggie Lyons is going to give us an update. As I said, the realtor survey portion of the housing assessment hasn't gone out yet, but Maggie can give us an update. And I think we had some screen sharing that was going to be ready for that. Maggie, if you're here.
Maggie is here. Let me make sure she's ready. And do you want me to share? I'll wait till she starts and then we can share the information on the survey links, Kiki. Maggie,
can you hear me now? Okay. Great. Hi, everybody. So the University of Idaho is really in full swing. They've been doing a pretty rapid pace on this housing assessment. It's really called the Housing Affordability and Availability Study, right? And in large measure, much of their rapid pace has been in thanks to this advisory group and Kiki's help, right? In terms of making available a lot of what they call primary data gathering, which are direct interviews and talking directly with people who represent a really great cross-section of this community with respect to housing interests and expertise. So we've gone out with it was part of that primary data gathering. We've gone out with several surveys and we wanted to share with you what those surveys look like. Hillary, which one are you going to call up first?
Sorry, my mute was stuck. Which one would you like for me to pull up first, Maggie?
Well, why don't we start with the employee survey? I think that this one was really quite marvelous in the response that we got from the community. So what we wanted to know was really, we all have anecdotal stories, but we wanted to go directly to people in the community who are living here, both as homeowners, but also as renters. And to understand what they're experiencing firsthand with respect to rents, because we know that rents have been dramatically increased if they are even lucky enough to pay an increased rent, because many of the rentals have sold. And we know that people are not able to find replacement homes. So this is an example of the survey here that went out to some key employers that we felt covered a really great cross-section of the community. So we've got service, manufacturing, healthcare, and aerospace. So this is what it looks like. I don't know if you want to show every question, but maybe go through it and you can see it. If you rented, it takes you into another subsection. But we're able to get, as you can see, like in number 4, just some great demographics as well, because real-time information about who we've got here in our community is very difficult from traditional data sources. So anyway, we have over 1,800 responses that have come in really within about 3 weeks. And we'll still be collecting these because the 3 school districts haven't yet responded, simply mostly because they haven't really been back to work yet. So we'll hold this survey open for probably another 2 to 3 weeks to allow the school districts to, all 3 school districts to jet these out to their employees. We also did an employer survey, and I think, I don't know, it went out to all the advisory committee members, and so you probably recognize this one. And we're still getting, I mean, this just went out, I think, last week, and we're getting the information back on this. But again, is to try and collect real-time information from employers in our community on what they're experiencing with employees who can't relocate here or take jobs, they can't find housing. We also did the realtor survey. We just got that finished late Friday afternoon. This will be going out to over 1,700 realtors in the area, again, trying to get their assessment of what the sales have looked like from their perspective. And we asked them to rank with their perspective on entire sales for the county. In addition to these surveys, the U of I team has conducted about 15 separate interviews of groups. And I think they're real pleased with the information that they're getting back from everybody. So it's moving along. We are targeting still October 31st for the final report. And of course, that final report will be available for everybody to look at. We're really hopeful that everybody will read it because we think it will provide a pretty good rudder for this ship of ours here in Kootenai County, for us to understand a lot of the issues and challenges and real-time data that we've got here, and how to come up with good solutions, which of course you guys are working on now, or Kiki is with the working group. And so I think it's just a perfectly timed effort by this group, the working group, and then the U of I study. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Great, Maggie.
Really appreciate everyone's help on this.
Great. And I'm not seeing any questions popping
Great.
into the chat box. So I appreciate the update, and thanks for popping in and keeping us up to speed on that one. The next item up on our agenda is the local worker housing toolkit discussion and the possible strategies to that research. So I'll start off by saying the working group has been discussing what exactly the definition of a local worker is. And some of our members, we're used to using the word workforce housing. And one of the things that in the last few years, many have recognized that we've had obviously growth, but kind of a shift in the type of workers that have been moving to this area. We know with the pandemic across the nation, our retirees started exercising their right to retire earlier than possibly in the past, and that they are moving to desirable places like this area in numbers larger than ever before. We know that there have been an investment surge in these hot commodity markets across the country that happened during the pandemic, in that there's just more people, including actual brokerage companies, that are purchasing real estate for investment property purposes. There's been new types of investment property like short-term rentals and that type of thing. And that during the pandemic, the telecommuting portion of workers escalated like it never has before. We all know of somebody who's working from home now, and their companies decided they didn't need to go back. We think those are valuable members. I think everybody would agree they're valuable members of our community. They raise their families here, they pay their taxes, you know, they coach our kids' soccer teams or whatnot. But what we are recognizing is that there needs to be some sort of balance in the county that provides inventory and homes for people who need to live in the county that they work. Their classifications of jobs aren't such that they can be done remotely. They have to be hands-on if they're in the healthcare profession, or they're a grocery store clerk, or they are a food server, or they are a physician. So we know that is one definition that needs to be worked on. We haven't come up with exactly how that looks and how the balance of what that in each community needs to be. But that's kind of a conversation that the working group had on what is a local worker and why are we using that term. And it's going to be an ongoing and evolving definition of that. But that's where we're at, and wanted to clarify why we use that in conversation. So the thing I want to present to you now is kind of the framework that the working group has been talking about, which basically is a local worker housing toolkit concept and a framework for how we're going to do that. I'll tell you that what this is our best effort with this group at putting together a document, if you will, that can be a handbook of a la carte policies under different headings that will be able to be used by planners throughout the region, by elected officials for reference, planning and zoning commissioners for backup, by developers, by the public, even to inform comp plans as they may need to be amended. So that's what this concept that we're presenting to you today is. And there actually will be a question on our live polling portion regarding this concept after we've gone through it today, before you leave today's meeting. The question of when will this document be modified? It's intended and designed to likely be a living document, in that as the markets change, as options change, as legalities change throughout the country, throughout the state, we can modify what this is. What we're looking today is to present you just kind of the basic skeleton of what we intend to continue the working group moving forward on. So it's designed to be built into chapters. These are obviously just a draft format right now of certain things that we would be talking about. Chapter 1 being existing inventory and protections. So these are just samples. Where I will tell you is that the list of items you're seeing here is an example of the top 20 items that we had looked at as a group with some advisory input and with legal and some planner input on what are things, as well as developer input, as what are things that we can put into the toolkit right away, and then start vetting out which ones are actually doable in the state of Idaho. Are they legal? Are they already in place? Are they things that we can just share as an educational piece to developers, counselors, planners, to help address this housing issue? So that's kind of what this is, the short list. There's a number of other items that may be added. Some of these may be dropped off. Some people may suggest something that we don't know, we hadn't put in this yet from the advisory group, and we're willing to take a look at that. For example, under existing inventory protections, a first right of refusal project might require that there's a land trust in place or a qualifying organization participates. All of these things are how do those work and who's a qualifying organization are yet to be determined. An important thing that our working group did discuss at our last meeting was the potential formation of some sort of housing advisory board. That's also going to be one of your polling questions today, is if you want us to move forward to examine what a board like that may look like. Should it be structured as an independent appointment board? Should it be an actual elected board? Should it be one that is in a different sort of governance than what we may be talking about as just a volunteer group? So that is a thing that will inform and quantify many of the items that are in the chapters that we're talking about right now. It's a little difficult when we're wading in a project this big to not put the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart that isn't going in the right direction. So this is basically a snapshot of where we're going as we start moving forward into what's going to be a very large and long body of work here to put forward some of these policies and solutions. First right of refusal, for example, is one that's been done in other cities that requires an ordinance be passed by a jurisdiction that says if someone is selling a property or a building, that a qualifying organization has the first right to buy it at fair market value that the owner was asking for, and that would help that jurisdiction achieve its local worker housing goals if they had the opportunity to buy through a qualified organization property in that fashion. So that's a simplified version of what that would mean, but it's something that this group may be looking at, trying to define and vet whether it could be of value in the county. The second chapter has things that could be that are possibly in place that a jurisdiction could do to help not only build but either remodel. And I will tell you, when I say remodel, for an example, the city of Sandpoint helped Schweitzer Mountain just last month purchase a assisted living facility that was on the market. They allowed them to change the use for that assisted living facility, and they were able to use it now for their employee housing for Schweitzer, because obviously they have no place for their seasonal staff to live. But by not actually anything funding wise coming from their city, they were able to partner with that private entity in order to create local worker housing for them specifically. So that's kind of a thing that could happen within each of our jurisdictions if we move forward under one of these types of options. Another thing, we're looking at Sandpoint again, but under chapter 3, there's I think that I've mentioned them before. The limited equity co-ops is an idea that the Habitat for Humanity group uses now, and could be done in a private entity, a private organization as well. And that's something that the local workers can take a look at. Okay, let me go ahead and stop so many words for a second. That is another program type that the working group could take a look at having put into a private owner's hands to be able to create a housing that local workers could afford. Under the chapter New Ideas, a lot of these will be things that take a huge amount of investigation. And as you just look at the generational housing codes to rent to own programs, the new Recovery Act funding, two that are fairly new to Idaho, but I think one that has happened in Washington on a regular basis is real estate transaction surcharges. They are calling that's an excise tax. I think Jeff already mentioned that, but it's one that we could talk about. What are our parameters in Idaho to be able to do something like that? And possibly what would our ability be to put that money into a fund which could subsidize down payments on homes if the homes were restricted to local worker housing, had payback options, and did have covenants on the property so that there was an ability for a local worker to actually purchase a home here. So some of those programs could be modeled after federal programs that have been done before. Some of those programs are possibly already able to be conducted through organizations that already exist in North Idaho. But these are the ideas that the working group is moving forward with. It's a very long list. It's not something that would be done in a month or 3 months or possibly a year or more, but it is a starting place for a long-term guide to see what and where we can go with some of these options and projects. I'm seeing some questions come in, so whoever wants to man the chat box and read the questions, and we'll try to get those answered.
I'll go ahead and kind of make some comments right now. So Len Crosby noted first, in 1992, the Idaho legislature established the Idaho Housing Trust Fund to assist local cities deal with workforce housing. The trust fund was never funded. Many other states have similar trust fund operating with funding provided by a portion of the recording fees paid when titles are transferred. Other states have a fee charged when a property sells to fund the trust fund. The fund exists in Idaho. We need our local legislators to get behind a funding mechanism. And then there was a question about getting this document uploaded to the website. Do we want to upload the outline as we have it now, so that as we go along, adding to it, adding the details in there, that can be followed?
You can certainly do that. Yep.
Okay.
I think that's fine as long as it's noted that these are my notes. These are not vetted planning. This is not vernacular that's accurate to what it needs to be. So as long as we put the disclaimer, I'm happy to be transparent with everything, but this is me pulling together collective. And so these are not titles of projects that are actually, just the disclaimer. This is a
I think that we should add that at the top, that this was, the kind of part of a brainstorming session, and that, some of this came about, and a lot of these ideas do come from other states and may not be something that Idaho can actually be allowed and permitted in Idaho. So we'll have to follow up on those. Somebody else did ask, can you please explain how the city of Sandpoint assisted Schweitzer in purchasing the assisted living facility? Do we have that information?
They didn't assist them. What they assisted them in doing is that they purchased the assisted living facility, but from my understanding is that it wasn't its occupancy for when they purchased it, the use that they wanted to change it to wasn't allowed, and they were able to help that change occur. So it was basically an amendment to where it was located and what its type of use per its zone was. Does that make sense to a planner? Can you explain that?
That makes sense, Kiki. We can look into the nuances of that just to see, but I'm guessing it was just to legalize the use. We often have things like that in all of our communities where it might have been existing over time, or maybe the assisted living was a special use permit, but the worker housing wasn't or something. So they had to kind of figure out the nuance to make it legal. So we can find out the details for this group.
And that's all I know, is that that I wanted to share with that as an example, that really all it took is for some you know, some leaders and some folks at Sandpoint to say, hey, this is necessary for this important business to stay here. And if it was a non-conforming use, we need to change it, then they were able to do that in kind of a, you know, a housekeeping of the policy type of zone or change. So, and did that question get answered okay then? Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Somebody else asked for the website address, so I put that back out there.
Great. Okay, are there any questions that we have from any of the advisory participants on what we're doing? Where we do have some polling questions that are going to come up. I just want to make sure that you know that this is an immense body of work. There's a lot of things that are happening in here, and we're trying our best to be transparent, make sure that all your input is gathered, and that if we can plug you into areas that you can assist or you're interested in, or there's something that your membership, your business is particularly interested in, please get back in touch with me and I will get you to the right people. Same on that. Do you have, I know we're running through the live polling questions, but I don't want to run out of time. So do you have the live polling questions ready?
Yes, I have the first poll up on the screen right now.
So for all of you who are in the advisory group, the hosts and the panelists aren't voting on this, but this is really where we have the opportunity to get direction from you on what you want us to do. This is important to all of our communities in the region, and we're all taking time above and beyond our normal scope of work because we need to continue to address this. So we're looking for some feedback from you.
The polls are coming in. We have about almost half of the people eligible people have launched their polling responses. They're still rolling in.
And do keep in mind that if you have questions, again, you're uncertain about, you know, how to interact, or you missed something that I said, the recorded videos will be posted at the KMPO site, but also feel free to email me. I've called a few of you back and had discussions for clarity, and that's super important that you feel engaged and that you know how important your work with us is. So feel free to give me a shout.
Okay, we're waiting for a few more responses. And if we don't get any more, we'll end the polling and I'll share the results. We have 17 of the 25, so 68% have voted on this question.
And some of you, if you're not certain how to vote, please give me a call so that the next time there is one, I can walk you through that.
Okay, I don't have anyone. Oh, here we go. Okay. Received one more, two more. Okay, we're getting a few more in. Okay. Gonna end the poll, share the results.
Great, so I'm not positive whether the entire panelists can see the results. I know that in the recording, at one point, the results did not show up for the entire a piece of the recording. So we will post the results on the site. But the answer is that there were 79% said yes, 5% said no, and 16% are uncertain. And that was the results of that poll question. So do you want to move to the next?
We will, and just to clarify too, so the panelists are not able to vote, and so this was just the other attendees. Our advisory group was able to vote on this. So I'll stop sharing these and we'll go to the next one. Okay, second poll should be up on your screen.
And this is we've discussed this. So while you're considering your vote, this was talking about the expiration of some sort of housing advisory board. And should that be regional? And should we, what types of options should we provide? Should we put together all of the options and have them, you know, have those options be put out as a poll? If you are for that kind of an idea, vote yes. If you don't think that a separate housing advisory group should lead what happens in some of these solutions and options, put no. Uncertain is always an option. And then do feel free to send any comments by email.
Okay, the results are still coming in. Okay, waiting on a few more. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end the polling and share the results.
So this one's a little closer. Should the working group explore the legalities, formation, and potential structure of an independent housing advisory board? 60% said yes, 15% said no, and 25% are uncertain. So I think that that leads towards a yes in my mind, but it's certainly with the uncertainty and the no's that we may need to do a little more exploration as to what that would look like, so that there's a little more definition for them to take a poll on the options of what a housing advisory board would look like in the future.
Okay, we'll take that down and we'll go to the last poll. Okay, that one's up on the screen.
So after reviewing the FAQs, that we're talking about the frequently asked questions that are all documented on the kmpo.net. Scroll over to featured programs, drop down to working groups, and everything we're doing is linked there. The frequently asked questions with the newest ones, I believe, are at the top. And we have recently added the definition of affordable housing. If you have any additions to that, if yes, please indicate so and then email what they are. If no, please indicate so as well.
Okay, we're getting some results in, waiting for a few more. Okay, I'm going to end the polling and share the results.
Okay, so 11% have a yes, so they have a few extra questions. I'll be looking forward to hearing from a few of you. And 89% said no. So we will keep updating that FAQs and hoping that you share with all your members and the rest of the folks in your immediate groups. Again, I don't think we had another polling question after that one. Did we?
We do not. Nope, those are the 3 polling questions.
Okay, so in our closing on this, our next agenda, our next meeting date, you'll get a link to. We're going to have more information on the housing assessment by that time. We'll have an update from our schools subcommittee at that time. I was asked to do another update about traffic because of the new some funding and some changes that I know that KMPO had put out regarding the traffic study in the health care corridor and the public input results on that. So we may have traffic back on our agenda. I was also asked, I did a number of developer meetings and as well as the North Idaho Building Contractors Association Developers Council. And a couple of them asked to put traffic back on our talking points as it relates. So we may have a traffic update at our next meeting. So those 3 items will be on there. What I'm hoping that we'll see is we will go ahead and post some of these toolkit options and the framework that we presented in a draft form of things we will be looking back on. We'll post that on the KMPO website. And in the meantime, the working group is going to take some of these that we've already discussed as possibly being ones that we can move forward with a smaller amount of research and start actually building, since we've gotten some approval today, that this format and framework of building this toolkit is a good direction for all to be able to use. So we're going to start expanding on some of these sub items under each chapter at our next working group meeting. Take the easiest wins first and start putting them into a document. And then if you have, then we'll probably review the same thing at our next meeting that we'll have, here's the progress to date and a summary of what some of those items that are under the chapter, these chapters in the toolkit are. So if anyone has anything else, any questions that they'd like to ask right now would be the time. We'll get back to you on that. Any other items you'd like to see us pull onto the agenda, we can consider those. If you just need to, I'm looking at the chat box here. And the website address is at the bottom of the agenda. So that's a good place to find that. And I know that my email address is in there. My email address is on that KMPO website. And pretty easy to find. So are there any other questions from any of the members, advisory group members attending today? Great. Thank you all again. We're going to close out here now. I will make sure that within the week we have new postings. We'll send out an email to the advisory group to let them know what the new items that have been added to the KMPO website, because I think there's going to be quite a large batch this week. And then we will see you again. Hillary, do you have the date? The next meeting is September 27th.
Yes, that's correct.
So you will be getting a Zoom link meeting to that and an agenda prior to. And I thank you again for your participation, everyone, and have a good rest of your day.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone.